Why is criminal justice reform so important? Stay tuned, and I'll answer that question. Welcome back. Criminal justice reform is on the minds of many people. As a criminal defense attorney for about 15 years, I have a lot to say on this topic. It's heartbreaking seeing all the injustices that many people experience in the criminal justice system. Every day, my law partner and I fight these injustices. But you may say, regardless of race, if they do the crime, they ought to do the time. Well, that's the exact sentiment that brings me to the very first reason why criminal justice reform is so important. To put it simply, the first reason that criminal justice reform is so important is systemic racism. The criminal justice system is filled with institutional and individual racism. We see this racism in every facet of the criminal justice system. Basically, you could say there are two criminal justice systems, one for white America and one for black America. And we see it very clearly in every facet of the criminal justice system, including the court system, policing, probation, prisons, death row. Again, every facet of the criminal justice system, we see institutional and individual racism, and collectively we call that systemic racism. The second reason that criminal justice reform is so important is mass incarceration. The United States of America is the most incarcerated nation on the planet. There are over 2 million people who are incarcerated in America's jails and prisons. And a disproportionate percentage of those people are Black Americans. As author and attorney Michelle Alexander said, our criminal justice system has essentially created the next Jim Crow, or the new Jim Crow. The third reason criminal justice reform is so important is because of the enormous power of prosecutors. You could say prosecutors control the criminal justice system. They determine the charges that a person faces, as well as who ends up on death row. With felony charges, they destroy many lives, and some of these lives could have been salvaged. On the other hand, where the defendants are white, oftentimes they are less harsh and more compassionate in their approach. And we've all seen the number of innocent people who have been wrongly convicted because of corrupt prosecutors. The fourth reason that criminal justice reform is so important is because of corrupt policing. From racial profiling to police brutality, we've all seen with our naked eyes racist policing. And because most policing target Black and brown communities, it is minorities who carry the brunt of bad cops. One of the most effective means of curtailing bad cops and reforming the criminal justice system is to abolish qualified immunity. Qualified immunity essentially protects bad police officers from accountability in civil court. It must be abolished. These are but a few reasons why the criminal justice system needs radical reform, and it needs it immediately. They prove that members of the bar, the bench, legislatures, law enforcement, clergy, community leaders, business leaders, and so forth need to come together and completely reimagine and revamp the criminal justice system and policing. The racist policies that we see in our criminal justice system and policing evolved over the last 100 years from the Jim Crow era. It's time we trash those destructive policies and approach criminal justice and policing in very different and new ways.